Hello, buddy. Welcome back to the Tin Man's Quarter channel. I'm your host, Jeffrey Tin Man Taylor, and today I'm reacting to my third and final Creepy Diaries video for you guys, and this was titled How Fake Cops Turn Horrifyingly Real. 3 disturbing fake cop horror stories. So without further ado, I'm going to turn these lights off, move the camera up here for you guys, and let's get this reaction on the road in the bag, shall we? Okay, here we go.
Traveling to New York City had always been a dream of mine. The towering skyscrapers, the bustling streets, and the blend of cultures were unlike anything I'd ever experienced. When my sister Kelly and I finally saved enough for a trip, we were over the moon. We planned every detail meticulously, eager to make the most of our adventure. Our first few days in the city were magical. We visited the Empire State Building, took a ferry to the Statue of Liberty, and spent hours wandering through Central Park.
That sounds fun. Me personally, I wouldn't mind going, but here's the thing. New York gets so crowded and it gets a little noisy, so I wouldn't like that part of the trip. But I also wouldn't mind going to like the upstate New York and see the countryside parts of that state. But anyway, let's continue.
On the third day, we decided to explore a bit off the beaten path and ventured into Brooklyn. We heard about a flea market that was supposed to be fantastic, full of unique finds and local treasures. As we browsed through vintage clothes and handmade jewelry, a police officer approached us. He was tall, clean-shaven, and wore a friendly smile. His partner, a shorter man with a serious expression, followed closely behind. "Good afternoon, ladies," the tall officer said. "I'm Officer Turner, and this is Officer Davis. We're conducting a routine check. Could we see some identification?" Caught off guard but not suspicious, we handed over our IDs. Officer Davis examined them briefly before nodding to his partner. "We've had reports of counterfeit goods being sold here," Officer Turner explained. "Mind if we take a look in your bags?" I hesitated, feeling a pang of unease. But they were cops, right? What harm could there be?
Yeah, what harm could it be? But I didn't think that they would be patrolling a flea market since they said it might be counterfeit goods. You would think they'll probably have undercover cops around there checking all the items instead of uniform police. So there's a lot of red flags up in the air right now. And plus, you're just checking people's items just to make sure they won't counterfeits. Why you need to check their IDs? I mean, they're the buyers, not the sellers. At this point, when they get done with you, walk away quick and call the real cops and just to check. If they turn out to be fakes, they'll come down there and arrest them, hopefully. I don't know if that's going to happen here, so let's just see what happens next.
Kelly and I handed over our bags. They rifled through our belongings, their expressions unreadable. After what felt like an eternity, they handed our bags back and thanked us for our cooperation. "Enjoy your day," Officer Turner said, smiling as they walked away. We watched them leave, feeling a bit uneasy but relieved the encounter was over. It wasn't until we tried to buy a snack from a nearby food truck that we realized something was wrong. Our wallets were empty. All the cash we had carefully budgeted for our trip was gone. Panic set in. We ran back to the spot where the officers had stopped us, but they were nowhere to be found. Desperate, we approached a nearby vendor who had witnessed the interaction. "They were cops, right?" Kelly asked, her voice shaking. The vendor frowned. "I've seen those guys around before, but something always felt off about them. Real cops usually don't check tourists' bags like that."
Exactly.
Our hearts sank. We had been robbed by fake cops. The vendor kindly directed us to the nearest police station, where we reported the incident. The officers there were sympathetic, but unsurprised. "This happens more often than you'd think," one of them said. "These scammers know tourists are easy targets. They're slick, and they move fast." We provided as many details as we could, their appearances, their mannerisms, the badge numbers we remembered. The officers assured us they would investigate, but their expressions suggested our chances of getting the money back were slim. The next few days were a whirlwind of frustration and disappointment. We had to call our parents to wire us money just to get by. Every time we saw a police officer, we felt a mix of anger and betrayal. How could we trust anyone after this? Then on our last night in New York, we received a call from the police. They had caught the imposters. Turns out, Our detailed description had helped them identify a pattern. The fake cops had been running similar scams all over the city, and their arrogance had finally caught up with them. We were asked to come to the station to identify our belongings. Walking into that sterile room, seeing our cash and items laid out among others, was surreal. The two men who had deceived us were sitting in a holding cell, looking far less intimidating than they had on the street. "They've been doing this for months," the detective told us. "You're not their first victims, but thanks to you, you might be their last." We identified our money and belongings, and while it didn't erase the trauma, it brought a sense of closure. The police assured us the fake cops would face charges, and we left the station feeling a mix of relief and residual anger. As we walked back to our hotel, Kelly turned to me. "It's been a crazy trip, huh?" I nodded. "Definitely not what we expected, but at least we know we helped stop them." "Yeah," she said, managing a small smile. "And next time, we'll be more careful." Our trip to New York City had been unforgettable, though not for all the reasons we had hoped. It was a stark reminder that even in the most amazing places, you need to stay vigilant. Despite the scare, we still had our memories, our experiences, and most importantly, each other.
Man, I'm glad the real cops caught them imposters and they were able to get their money back, because I was afraid that once they took the money, they were going to spend it on something. But thankfully, due to their description of what these guys look like, they were able to capture them before they did anybody else dirty like that. But yeah, you could tell that if they're imposters by if they're asking to look through their items. You can still trust cops, but then there's some cops today that just act so arrogant and stupid that makes all the other cops look bad, as well as the fake cops doing stuff like this. And if that vendor's seen them do that before, I'm surprised they didn't call the cops right then and there just to get them over there quick. Then they would have lost their cash and other belongings that day. All this would have been avoided right then. But thankfully, they were able to enjoy the rest of their trip without worrying about facing the fake cops again. So let's get to story number 2, shall we?
It was a typical night at the bar, the usual routine of closing up and heading home. The streets were quiet, the neon lights flickering as I made my way to my car. But then, a chilling encounter unfolded. As I approached my car, a police cruiser caught my attention at the corner. A uniformed officer called out to me, his presence sending a shiver down my spine. His request for my ID seemed routine, but his demeanor was unsettling. Reluctantly, I complied, feeling a sense of unease grow within me. The officer's request for me to accompany him to the car raised red flags, but with no one around, I followed, my heart pounding with apprehension. Inside the cruiser, the atmosphere was suffocating, the officer's behavior becoming more ominous by the minute. As we drove into the darkness, my fear intensified. The isolation, the unkempt back seat, and the officer's cryptic words painted a grim picture. When he stopped the car and uttered those chilling words about people disappearing, terror gripped me. Trapped in that car, my attempts to escape futile, I was at the mercy of a man whose intentions were anything but noble. His sadistic enjoyment of my fear was a nightmare come to life. The realization that I was truly alone, at the mercy of a fake cop, sent me into a frenzy of panic and despair. As the car moved further away from safety, my cries for help echoed in the emptiness around us, unheard and unanswered. The officer's callousness and the sheer helplessness of my situation crushed me, leaving me with a sense of impending doom. In that moment, as the car disappeared into the night, I knew that my fate was sealed.
Oh, don't be thinking about that. There's always some sort of guardian angel looking over you. But yeah, that would have been a red flag right there if the officer tells you to follow him to the car and put you in the back seat. And if the back seat don't look kept clean, then you know that's not a real cop automatically, because they will keep their vehicles clean for every inmate they transfer in their vehicle. And figured since you left the bar, he thought you'd be a good target to take. Man, this is getting so scary. I hope he finds a way to get that door open and jump out of the car if he has to.
The darkness swallowed me whole, a victim of a sinister charade orchestrated by a fake cop, leaving behind only questions and a haunting sense of loss.
Whoa, 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 that's it? I thought he would tell how he got out of that situation. Unless that cop was very generous and decided to let him out. I don't know. That probably did not happen likely. So he must have been able to get his door open and run. Who knows? He didn't say it in the story, but I hope he went to the real police and told them about this whole situation happening. But thankfully, he was able to get out of that situation and was able to tell this story, because if he didn't, it probably wouldn't have been heard of again and wouldn't be able to tell the story. But that is crazy.
It was a stifling Friday evening, and the city buzzed with the restless energy of the weekend crowd. I sat quietly on the worn-out seat of my '93 Chevy, parked just off Haverstock Lane, with a cold cup of joe resting in the holder. My eyes were glued to the minute details around, though my attire, a disheveled navy blue uniform and an overused badge, marked a disguise I had grown increasingly uncomfortable with. Just 3 weeks ago, I stumbled into the realm of impersonating a police officer. It started trivially, borrowing a friend's uniform for a costume party. The authoritative glances I received throughout night were intoxicating. I wanted more. The costume turned into an entity of its own, and before I knew it, I was driving around the neighborhood, soaking in the deference and commands I had over others. Protect and serve, I would mutter to myself jokingly. But tonight was different. There was a palpable tension in the air as I watched people pass by. They were blissfully unaware of the facade I carried. I noticed a young woman, early 20s, maybe lost, scanning her phone and fidgeting with anxiety. Seeing an opportunity to flex my illusory authority, I approached cautiously. "Evening, ma'am. Anything wrong?" "Officer Mark at your service," I announced, trying my best to simulate concern. "Oh, thank God, officer," she sighed, her relief evident. "I think I'm being followed. There's this car. It has been circling around for almost an hour now." My stomach knotted. The reality of my deceit weighed heavily as panic flashed in her eyes. What started as a game was no longer a trivial pursuit. Observing her distress, I found myself caught in the momentum of my lie. I nodded, suggesting she stay near me for safety. "Let's wait here. I'll handle this," I claimed confidently, though unease clawed at me. Minutes stretched as a car she pointed out lingered ominously a block away. With each passing second, the gravity of my masquerade bore down on me. This wasn't a game. There were real stakes, real danger, and here I was. A fake, a fraud. Eventually the suspicious car drove off, and I watched her body relax. "Thank you, officer. I don't know what I would have done without you here." She walked away, disappearing into the night, leaving me alone with the crushing weight of my charade. The realization that my actions could lead to consequential outcomes hit hard. In my fabricated role, I stood on a dangerous precipice. The flirtation with authority had morphed into a terrifying encounter with reality, highlighting the peril of the lies we choose to live. That night, I discarded the uniform and vowed never to blur the lines of truth and deception. Again. The thrill I sought was mirrored with equal parts dread, an unwelcome reflection of the risks tied to the mask I wore. This brush with reality served as a stark illumination. Some roles carry weights too heavy to shoulder, especially under the guise of deceit.
Well, I never thought I would hear a fake cop's own testimony. Like, he did the right thing and not try to entice this woman during a scary situation and just protected her. Because I'd be mad if he said he took advantage of her while somebody else was stalking her, tried to either rob or kidnap her. But thankfully that did not happen. He just decided to take the uniform off and don't do it again. Because if he did, the real cops would have showed up and arrested him on the spot. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on post notifications for more Creepy Diaries content like this. This has been another successful installment of the Tin Man's Quarter Channel. I'm your host, Jeffrey Tin Man Taylor, and I said that's a wrap. And have a nice day, buddy.